Hey guys, what is Topical? Nate here, and today I am playing our over-under game for superhero team-up movies because The Eternals is coming out, and it has superheroes that are on a team. But before we get to that, scroll down to the description box below, pop it open, you'll find links to our social media accounts. Go and give us a follow on those. We also have links to our Patreon account and our Coffee account, where if you would like to help our channel grow, we would appreciate any financial contribution because it can't happen without it.
First off, we have the first giant team-up movie from the big two, Marvel and DC, and that is the X-Men.
Oh, just X-Men.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to have a hard time with these because I feel like a lot of them I'm going to think are perfectly rated, and that mostly just comes from the fact that superhero movies just inherently get talked about so much because it does have a very large and very vocal and very internet present fan base. So I think that the first one is perfectly rated. I feel like we don't talk about them so much. Like most of the time when you hear about someone talk about the X-Men now, they're just talking about when are the X-Men going to enter the MCU. And I don't know. I have no idea. Probably soon. So I think it's perfectly rated. I don't think that it's ever gotten any disrespect that it didn't deserve, and I had never heard anybody overhype it in a way that it didn't deserve either.
Well, it might be a few on here like this, so I'm just going to throw it out. The reason why I chose this to be on the over and under list is because I feel like some of these have been forgotten about.
Yeah.
When they shouldn't have.
Well, I think that's fair. I mean, So
if I was in your spot, I would
Yeah.
I think it's a little underrated.
Well, no. I was about to say, I think that's a good point. And I will switch it to just a little underrated. And that is just because, no, you made a good point, and I didn't think about it that way.
Obviously.
Yeah, I will say that it is a little underrated. And it is just because the MCU exists now, hardly anyone actually talks about any of the X-Men movies. And if they do, they're usually bringing up the bad ones just to point out how shitty they were. So...
Speaking about the MCU, the first team-up movie from the MCU, the Avengers.
Well, now that you have me on that train of thought, it still might be the same answer for a lot of them. Because I think that that's also slightly underrated now. Strange Wang himself is superhero fatigued. He wants nothing to do with superhero movies at this point. I don't feel as bad, but there are so many of them. And we are not a comic book centric movie channel. We watch all movies. That it feels a little overwhelming how many we get. But I really do think it is important what that first Avengers movie did, what it meant for comic book fans and movie fans alike, and especially if you're a fan of both of them, getting to see that actually happen was pretty amazing. And I remember when I saw it in theaters, that was back when going to a film in a theater was an actual event, and I hope that we get back to that at some point. But getting to see a superhero movie on that large of a scale work on a comedic level, work on a not super emotionally deep level, but it had elements of that stuff in there, and to see all of the heroes actually being portrayed in a good way. There's not a bad performance in the movie. So I think it's a little underrated just because with how big the MCU is now, we hardly ever talk about the OG Avengers.
Next, we have a later team-up movie in the MCU, Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
I think that one is a little overrated, personally. I know a lot of people liked it. I love the Guardians. I love all the characters in the Guardians. But the third act in this movie... I just did not like it. It just got... I understand that you want the comedic value in there. I understand that Peter Quill is kind of this pop culture guy. So, it makes sense to throw those elements in there. This had a giant Pac-Man in it. Am I incorrect?
You are correct.
Yeah. And so, that's just too on the nose with the pop culture. You are fighting a living planet. I just it just got too goofy for me. And I know that it worked for a lot of people, but it did not work for me. And you did such a good job of building up this dad stuff with him and Ego, and then it just like the resolution on that just fell really flat for me.
Next, we have what some people will call the greatest superhero movie of all time. Definitely the greatest superhero team-up movie of all time, Mystery Men.
Well, I think Mystery Men is perfectly rated because it's a terrible movie, and I've never heard anyone say that it wasn't.
It's not.
Huh?
I like that movie.
Well, that's not surprising.
The fuck is that supposed to mean?
That movie's trash, dude.
You're a nematode.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw it when you were little, I understand you thinking that it was hilarious. Then it definitely is targeting like a child audience, and definitely a product of its time, because it wasn't just targeting a child audience; it was targeting like an early 2000s child audience. Because I remember seeing the previews and the commercials and laughing and wanting to see that movie really, really bad when I was a kid. And I did see it, and I probably loved it then. But it's dumb. It's an attempt at a spoof, but it ain't Mel Brooks. We'll say it that way.
Next, we have one of the most anticipated movies of all time, Justice League: The Snyder Cut.
I'm gonna say slightly overrated. And that is for a lot of reasons. First of all, I think it's incredible that fans on the internet proved that if we made enough noise, that you could get something made, because you showed the studio that there were going to be dollar signs in it. I don't think that's a precedent that is going to get set, and I don't think that they will fall for that every time. It is better than Joss Whedon's, and I'm really happy about that. But the hype that was behind this movie versus like from a subjective critical eye of what it is, like the hype does not match what the movie itself is. And I understand that the hype was there because these characters are so important to like a large group of people who have been reading the comics and watching the animated shows growing up and like living in these characters' worlds for so long to see a live action version of this story get told is incredibly important to them. But from looking at it from a purely like I am a film critic aspect, the movie is fine. Like it's okay. It's just okay.
Next, we have the penultimate movie, which is Strange Wang's favorite X-Men film, X-Men First Class.
Okay. I think I'm going to have to go with the same logic that I went for the first X-Men movie. I like First Class a lot. I like it more than I liked the original X-Men, and I still really liked the first X-Men movie. But who is talking about X-Men First Class now? I'm sure that there are dedicated comic book YouTube channels and critics who bring it up and talk about it, but in like the zeitgeist of film culture, nobody is talking about X-Men First Class anymore because it's not part of the MCU. But as someone who grew up watching like X-Men Evolutions and things like that, getting to see like the younger versions of some of these characters in a live action film and having it actually be a good X-Men movie, can't undersell what that meant to me personally. And now that we're talking about it, I kind of want to go watch it again. So I'm going to say slightly underrated because we seem to have forgotten about it as a whole.
Slightly, yes, I should. Very underrated. Next, I wasn't going to forget about you. You know what it is. Into the SpiderVerse.
Oh, okay. I had a feeling that was going to be on there, even though you told me you didn't have any animated movies on here. That's tough. Part of me wants to say underrated, but it is pretty much universally loved. In like the small like film circle that I follow on Twitter, people talk about it being the best Spider-Man movie that exists as of right now. Could not agree more. It absolutely is the best Spider-Man movie that exists now. But the reason I say slightly underrated is just because I know people who refuse to watch it because it's animated, or refuse to watch it because they're just so emotionally and nostalgically tied to the Tobey Maguire films that they just can't. They don't want to see a Spider-Man that's actually better than Spider-Man 2. which is sad because if you really, really love Spider-Man, you will love this movie. And it hits on like emotional levels. The action is out of this world. The animation is sick. The sound design is sick. The alternate versions of like the characters and villains that we get is absolutely amazing. And it is, I think, undisputedly the best Spider-Man movie. So if the fact that there are people who don't think that it is just automatically going to make it underrated in my book. But that's what I think about these movies. Let me know what you think about them down in the comment section below. Scroll back up, hit the like button, and subscribe.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.